What's up, guys? Today I want to talk about Lavar Ball and ESPN and the incident between him and Molly Qerim. Now, for those of you who don't follow ESPN or basketball, NBA ball, uh, Lavar Ball is the father of a basketball player who was on the Lakers who just got traded to the Pelicans. So for Anthony Brown. Um, he's gained notoriety and fame because he's outspoken. He's a character, right? Um, he's not really a politically correct type of guy. You don't really know what you're going to get with this guy. He's kind of somebody who's like a loose cannon type of guy, and he's not really for everyone. I'll be, the first to say I'm not a big fan of his. He's a lot. He's very arrogant. And he's just, he's famous for no real reason. And that kind of shit bothers me. Like, he's a reality show type of personality. I don't have a lot of respect for these people. This is just a personal opinion. I don't really want to attack the guy too much, but, he's not famous because of anything other than who his son is. Putting all that aside, he's been a recurring guest on shows on ESPN. Also, he's been on Fox Sports. They'll bring him on to discuss not just his son, but also things pertaining to the NBA and even other topics. For some reason, these networks view this guy as a somebody who's an authority on anything. You could talk to him about anything, just put him on a panel. I get it. There's a easy ratings grab there because the guy is somewhat entertaining. I'll be the first to admit it. Even though I don't really like him, it's hard not to watch when he's on. He's kind of a clown, to be honest, in my opinion. That being said, he's been a guest on many programs, and recently he was on ESPN, and he was on First Take. Those of you who don't know, that's a show that's on every day on ESPN. You got Stephen A. Smith on there, you got Max Kellerman, and then you have a moderator, which a lot of shows do now, right? So they'll have someone who is not really on the panel, but they are there to moderate and keep the conversation going in a specific direction, right? That's the job of a moderator. And yeah, once in a while, chime in when it's appropriate and maybe give your opinion. But always, there's always the focus of moderation and making sure that everyone on the panel gets their point across and you keep things in control so things don't spiral out of control. That's the job of a moderator. So the moderator on ESPN's First Take is a woman named Molly Qerim. And before she was the moderator, she's only been the moderator for a couple of years. Before her, it was someone named Carrie Champion. So the common theme is that most of these shows, they'll pick somebody who is somewhat young and attractive as that in that position of moderator, and it's never really somebody who is chosen because they are considered well versed in sports, right? Or has someone who can really bring something to the table. It's more or less somebody who is eye candy, so to speak. So moving on from that, we had a show. This was like a week or two ago, so I'm talking about it a little late. I did mean to talk about this earlier, but I didn't jump on it right away, and I wanted to make sure I got everything in perspective before I said something about it. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is because I feel like I could bring something that I haven't seen anyone else talk about. Now, I have in certain comment sections brought this up, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in other people's reactions. But what happened was they were discussing some topic. Okay, now I'll try to post the link in the description box. I don't know if I'll get a chance to do it because I'm doing this video at work. It's not easy to make stuff happen like that. But if in case I don't, you can easily type in Lavar Ball, ESPN, Molly Qerim into the search box on the YouTube search. There's dozens of videos. You can see exactly the incident I'm talking about and other things I'm going to talk about. So what happened was, at one point, Molly Qerim, the moderator, interjects into the conversation. And she tells Lavar Ball, "Can I switch gears with you for a second?" And his response to her was, "You can switch gears with me anytime. Let's go." And he went just like that. So, immediately, the camera cuts to Molly Qerim's face. And she's making this face like, oh my God, like she's shocked and stunned. And then you see Stephen A. Smith, and he's sitting there making a face. And it was like this uncomfortable moment. And of course, really depending on the type of person you are, you're going to have different views of this, right? And some people are going to say, yeah, that the way he responded could be taken the wrong way. It could seem somewhat like of an inappropriate response. I mean, we're really pushing things, right? If you really want to go that route, it's a stretch. It's beyond a stretch, right? So yeah, you could kind of say, yeah, he kind of meant it in a sexual way, because the way he responded to her, you could switch gears with me anytime, let's go. But you could just as easily, if not more, take it that he meant, yeah, you want to switch gears, you want to switch topics. That's pretty much the way I took it, and to me, is any normal person's way of thinking would take it that way. But her reaction is really what caused a chain link of a chain of events, I should say, that it eventually led to ESPN putting out a public statement condemning his comment and defending Molly Qerim, and then announcing that he was banned from ESPN. So, the controversy is all surrounding that quick snippet of this show. And this leads me to a bigger issue about these social justice warriors, as they call them, SJWs, or feminists, and this whole quote-unquote Me Too movement is out of control. And it's incidents like this, to me, that do more harm to this movement than any good. And some people think that, well, if you have a problem with this particular incident, then you are somehow against, women's equality, or you support sex harassment of any kind, which is incredibly stupid. But the point is that I'm trying to make is the people doing the most harm to women in general, and I think women who are real victims of sex harassment, are the people, these very Me Too people, these people that are immediately jumping on this narrative that Lavar Ball actually did something wrong. So, this happened already over a week ago. There's dozens of videos about it all over YouTube. And you could see most people are responding the same way I am. It's like, this is ridiculous. It's out of control. Molly Qerim, he is not a victim of anything. She overreacted. Okay? And that's where I'm at. Right? So before I go any further, everything I just talked about really touches on the same thing everyone else is talking about. It's not really bringing anything new to the table, right? So before I go to what I am going to talk about, I'm going to say that what ESPN did and what Molly Qerim instigated, in my opinion, is defamation of character. And where I want to go with this is that, in my opinion, if I was advising LaVar Ball, I would tell him, if I were you, I would make a public statement that I'm considering suing ESPN and Molly Qerim for defamation of character. And I brought this up in specific comment sections of certain videos, and a lot of people agreed with it. But, of course, as always, there's always a few people that disagree, which is fine. But when you disagree, you gotta sort of have a rational, logic-based way to respond, right? In my opinion. But, the people that did disagree, they were like, oh, this guy's crazy. What are you talking about? This guy doesn't know what defamation of character is. No. You don't know what defamation of character is. Any person or corporation that comes out and makes a statement or lies, something that's not based on facts, that hurts somebody's character and is a lie, it's based on a lie, or something that cannot be proven, is defamation of character. And if it's something that can cause harm to somebody, yes, you can sue for that. Now, LaVar Ball can make a legitimate case that he's a victim of defamation of character. He could be trying to maybe get his own show. He could be working on some business. He's a businessman, right? He tried to have his own sneakers, this Big Baller brand thing that I think failed. What if he's trying to sell T-shirts? What if whatever the case may be? It could be anything. Maybe he's going to sign some kind of deal to be on a show, because the guy does have a, thought-provoking character to him. Whether you like the guy or not, he does grab your attention. So I could see somebody out there saying, hey, let's put this guy on a show. People will tune in and watch. Even people who don't like him. There's that, effect that some people have, that even if you don't like them, you can't turn away. I think he has that. The point being that by ESPN coming out and making a public statement that this man did something wrong, disrespectful, that he's banned from ESPN, they're putting a narrative out there in public that LaVar Ball actually did something wrong. And you have to be a complete moron to not assume that they mean sexual harassment. Just even if it's a comment. That is actually harmful to this man. You don't know how this is going to affect his life. Maybe he's going for a specific job. Maybe there's something in his life that's affected because people now view him as that guy who made a sexual harassment type of comment or action to a woman. And a lot of people don't investigate. They don't look into things like that. They just find out, hey, oh, this guy has this attached to him. I don't want nothing to do with this guy. You can take somebody to court and file a claim on that. You can do it. The other argument I heard against it was that it's expensive and you got to hire a lawyer. Listen, first of all, if you're suing, I do believe that lawyers can take a case contingent upon the earnings, right? So they can get a third of whatever he might get from ESPN and or Molly Qerim in a lawsuit, which would, I guarantee you, be settled out of court. ESPN does not want this to go to court if it ever came to that, because If you look at the video, and by the way, please go and see the video. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. For the ESPN to actually stand up in court and tell a judge or a jury, you see, listen to what he just did, watch what he just did, that was inappropriate, and it was a sexual harassment, and it was enough for us to come out and make a public statement about this man, about his character. They won't be able to do it, and they know it. So this would never go to court anyway. Also, there's a lot of lawyers out there, just to make a name for themselves, they would jump on this case in a heartbeat and say, I'll do it pro bono. I'll help you do this, and I want my name out there. You know, it's good publicity for a lawyer who nobody knows. So, filing a lawsuit is not going to be something that is going to put this man in the poorhouse. In fact, he may not even need to go through with a lawsuit. He can just come out and publicly threaten ESPN and Molly Qerim with a lawsuit. Just put it out there. Just put it out there in the public sphere, right? Sometimes you just have to send a message. Even if you don't go through with trying to sue, just put it out there. Because what ESPN and Molly Qerim did could be considered harmful to Lavar Ball, to any business ventures he might want to go into, or any deals he might have in the works. So, my advice to Lavar Ball is find a lawyer, threaten these people with a lawsuit, and see what happens. Somewhere somebody has to do this, because this is not the first time we've seen one of these incidents that happen. You know, these guys get charged with some kind of inappropriate action, even if they don't come straight out and call it harassment or sex harassment. Look what they did to this guy. ESPN is a massive corporation. For ESPN to go out and publicly defend Molly Qerim for something that needed no defense, because the man did nothing wrong, and then you go out in public and call this man out by name, and then say that you're banning him from ESPN. That's a heavy hand coming from a corporation like ESPN. And I wouldn't take it lightly. And if I was Lavar Ball, I would definitely look into suing them, because it has to happen. And think of how many people this can happen to. You got to fight back. This whole, culture that we're seeing, where people have to walk around on eggshells because anything could be conceived as harassment of some kind. If you look at Keanu Reeves, there's this whole thing going viral now where all of his pictures with fans, you can see him with his arms back, and he doesn't touch people when he takes pictures with them. Clearly, that is an effect of this whole Me Too thing. Now, I want to make something clear. I'm not against this Me Too movement. I think that it came from a positive place, and I do think that there does need to be an awareness, right? Because think of how many people actually do experience sexual harassment at the workplace or behind the scenes. It happens. It's always happened. So it's good that there's an awareness, but you have to be careful, because this thing can always get out of control, as we're seeing. We're witnessing it right before our very eyes. So even the people with the best intentions, well-meaning people, end up steamrolling people who are innocent just because they feel like they have to do something. ESPN got goaded into this position by Molly Qerim, because all of a sudden she felt, like she was disrespected or whatever. Now, if you see the video, what you're going to see is that she clearly asked Lavar Ball. First of all, she chimed in like she always does, right? I can't stand this woman. She's gotten worse with time. these, like I said, these moderators, most of the time, they're not well versed on the subjects that are being discussed. And Molly Qerim, she's known for just chiming in and interrupting debates and conversations at the worst moment, and she'll chime in, and she's rarely on point. I know I sound like I'm being really harsh on her, but if you watch First Take, she brings nothing to the table. She, to me, is a distraction. Which, in a way, that's kind of what ESPN wants, because they put these women there who they consider attractive, and to them it's like, okay, we've given our audience some eye candy to go along with these quote-unquote debates, instead of finding well-versed, qualified women who truly understand sports and the topics being discussed, where they can properly moderate while at the same time adding something to the conversation. There's plenty of women out there who can do this, but they're not focused on that. They want eye candy. So you get Molly Qerim, who made this big face, which led to Stephen A. making faces, because he's another gutless fucking clown. I can't stand Stephen A. Smith. I do watch First Take, but man, it's like I'll watch it for a few minutes, and then once he starts with his screaming and his fucking circus act, it just goes downhill from there. So I can't watch First Take for long periods of time. Now, here's the problem. One, Molly Qerim clearly asked Lavar Ball, after interjecting, all right, can we switch gears for a minute? Or something like that, right? And that's when Lavar Ball says, you can switch gears with me anytime. Let's go. Yeah, I'll admit, it could be somewhat of a sexual type of jokey type comment. It could be, but we don't know that. You know why we don't know that? Because at no point after he said that did Molly Qerim, Stephen A. Smith, or Max Kellerman, or anyone on ESPN step in to say anything to Lavar Ball, to question him on what he meant by what he just said. This whole thing could have been squashed, but they didn't do it. You know why they didn't do it? Because they didn't know what he meant. It could be taken either way. It could be taken as, yeah, let's switch topics. Let's go. I'm ready. Or it could have been, yeah, you could switch gears with me anytime. Like, hey, I'm down with that. Like some kind of sexual connotation to it. Lavar Ball is known for saying stupid shit. That's why ESPN brings him on these shows. It's not because he's knowledgeable about sports. He's a fucking loudmouth clown. But he did nothing wrong here. And if you want to get technical and you want to get into a courtroom, any lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, I could destroy ESPN and Molly Qerim, and I don't know anything about the law, by simply pointing out that Molly Qerim asked him exactly in that specific term, can we switch gears for a second? And he simply repeated to her what she just said to him. So, why was Molly Qerim suddenly outraged? Because in her mind, there's only one way Lavar Ball could have meant that comment. It had to be sexual. Surely because Molly Qerim is so attractive and irresistible to men that they are willing to, on public television, just make sexual advances or comments, because she's so irresistible. She's so beautiful. In her mind, this is what she's thinking. He couldn't have just meant what I meant, which was, let's switch topics. And she never bothered asking him about it. So if you're so outraged about this, the next thing should have been, what do you mean by that? You could have just asked. Put him on the spot. He could have turned around and said, well, I meant whatever you meant. Didn't you mean switch topics? Or he could have said something that maybe confirmed what you thought that might have been sexual, which I doubt that would have happened, which is why she didn't bother asking. By the way, not only did Molly Qerim not ask, nobody else asked. Stephen A. Smith, who's a fucking loudmouth, I can't stand this little troll. Very big mouth. He's very loud. He didn't ask Lavar Ball. He didn't even say anything to Lavar. He could have stepped in and put his cape on, his Superman cape, and came to her defense. Live. Right there while Lavar was there. He didn't do that. Max Kellerman didn't do that. You know what happened? They waited until Lavar was no longer part of that segment, and he left. And they moved on. And later on, in the show, Molly Qerim mentions the incident, like kind of in an offhand way, and she mentioned the words going to, she might have to go to HR or something like that. And the way she said it, it could have been like she was kidding or joking, but it might not have been. The fact that she mentioned that incident and brought up the words HR, which is human resources, which is where you go to complain about things like sexual harassment, stuff like that, why would you mention that? Even as a joke. That's telling ESPN, you need to do something. Because I might go to HR. Even if I don't go to them, I'm putting this out there in the public sphere. Why didn't you say anything while Lavar Ball was still on that panel? Why didn't Big Mouth Stephen A. Smith say anything? They didn't have the fucking balls to confront this man right then and there. What they did was they made a few faces, it got a little awkward, and they kind of moved on. They didn't question him. This is so-called journalist, right? Stephen A. Smith, who is very loud, likes to talk shit about people, but he has this man right there in his face, and he sees something that he thinks is, shouldn't have been said, something disrespectful, whatever. And he didn't say a fucking word. He's a piece of shit. That's why I don't like Stephen A. Smith. Molly Qerim, another one. Because she's very quick to interject, chime in, interrupt, and she had nothing to say, really. She just kind of let the shit kind of flutter around while making faces. So, nobody on ESPN bothered to take that moment and just confront them. If I see someone say something disrespectful or inappropriate in front of me, I'll say something. I'll at least say, hey man, what does that mean? That kind of sounds fucked up. You shouldn't have said that, or, I think you owe her an apology. At least put him on the spot where he can say, hey, what are you talking about? She asked me to switch gears, and I told her we can switch gears anytime. Didn't she mean switch topics? This whole thing says more about Molly Qerim than it does about Lavar Ball. Because it's her words and her assumption that when a man repeats her own words back to her, she asked him, can we switch gears? He said, yes, we could switch gears anytime. And he's the problem? This says more about her than it does about him. So, Lavar Ball, in my opinion, has a great opportunity to file a lawsuit. At least threaten these people with a lawsuit. Because they put him in a bad spot publicly. And who knows what kind of effect this will have on him in the future. And it isn't just for him. This is for anyone who's falsely accused of something that's inappropriate or of a sexual nature. And if we don't push back, fight back on these things, it's just going to get worse. And this happened on live television, where it's on camera, where you could see nothing happened, and still this woman had this absurd reaction, and so did the people on the panel, and so did ESPN, because when they heard her mention the words HR, they said, we need to make a public statement. And then they, of course, announced that he's banned from ESPN. Doesn't even work for ESPN. They invite him on because he's good for their ratings. So his clown act was good for them until someone like Molly Qerim got offended. So now they're forced to kind of like, we got to do something to show that, otherwise we're going to get killed by all of these feminists and SJWs and all this stuff. This thing is out of control. And none of these people bothered to question this man when he was there. They waited till he's no longer on the panel to address this stuff, which is cowardly. And it also shows another thing. She knew that if she actually tried to raise the question of why he said what he said, that he was going to make her look stupid. She would have embarrassed herself, and she knew it. So she didn't want to poke the bear. And I'll tell you, this isn't the first time that Lavar Ball has had a controversial moment on a sports talk program. On Fox Sports, those of you who know who Colin Cowherd is, he has his own show. It's kind of like it's another sports talk type of thing on Fox Sports. And he also has she's not really a moderator. I forgot her fucking name. I'm sorry, man. But she's on there, and she's kind of in the background. She's part of the panel in a way, but she's someone else who is not well versed on sports, does not really bring anything deep to any conversation. She's just another pretty face who's part of a program. But she sits, it's weird because Colin Cowherd sits at his desk. Then it's a weird studio because then his guest sits away from his desk, somewhere in the middle, and then this girl sits above but behind. It's sort of a balcony. It's weird. I'm doing the best I can to describe this, but if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. So the guest is sitting here, and he's kind of looking at Colin Cowherd over here, but she's back here. So anyhow, they were talking about, his son, the NBA, whatever it was, and at one point, this woman, oh my God, I'm sorry guys, I can't remember her name. I knew before and I just forgot, but it's a pretty girl. She brought up a question, something about his sons and this thing about him as a father and something about how it affects his sons publicly or some I don't remember the exact question she brought up, but whatever it was something that made Lavar Ball uncomfortable. It was very private and it was almost controversial. She was trying to stir up some shit, right? And he wasn't having it. So he got upset, and what he did was he told her, stay in your lane. And then he said, you're not even here. So he refused to even acknowledge her presence. He didn't even look at her, right? Because she was behind, and he just refused to look at her, which I loved it. I loved watching that because she deserved it. And he just looked at Colin Cowherd, and he kept talking to him. And she kept trying to talk, and he said, stay in your lane. And you're not even here. So, those of you who follow and watch this stuff, you know what I'm talking about. So, if you remember this girl's name, Christine Leahy, I think that's her name. In either case, I apologize. But it's not his first time. In either case, she embarrassed herself, and he embarrassed her. And I think Molly Qerim, she said, this is not the guy I want to mess with. Not live on air. I'm going to wait till he's not here to stir the pot even further. And that's why nobody on ESPN confronted this man live on TV. They waited till he wasn't there to bring all this bullshit up. So, he should sue. He should sue ESPN and Molly Qerim, or at the very least, threaten them with a lawsuit. Demand an apology and say, all I did was repeat her words to her. So the fact that she thinks it was sexual or inappropriate says more about her than it does about me. Why is she outraged? It's her words. I repeated back to her. What did I do wrong? Look at the video. Nobody there is going to be able to fight that. It's all on video. So, that's all I want to say about this. What do you guys think? I think if there's a case for defamation of character, this is it. This is defamation of character. They are alluding that this man did something inappropriate or on the verge of sexual harassment. They didn't use those words because they're not stupid. They're not going to go to that place. They're just going to act like, oh, what he did was inappropriate and poor Molly Qerim. But there's nothing there. When something really happens, they'll get specific. But they went out and publicly denounced this man, and that is harmful to somebody. You can't just do that. So, those are my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think. There's still no news on NASCAR, NASCAR Heat 4, except other than they're going to reveal cover for the game. I think the July 4th or 3rd race. It's, the usual stuff every year. They'll just release the cover. Who's on the cover? I don't care. I really don't. I want to know about the game. Hopefully, maybe in conjunction with that, we do get news on the game. But that's all I really know right now. I'm going to wait till actual news comes out before I do a video on that. So, I wanted to talk about something different today. This was, to me, an important subject, and those are my thoughts. And I really think he's got a case. So, what do you guys think? I look forward to your comments.